Domain Dave from cheapwinefinder.com today, but a little bit different than usual. We're going to talk to me, and we're talking to
Bruce Taylor
from Kono.
From Kono in New Zealand, yeah.
So we're actually talking to people who know what they're talking about, not just me talking. So,
oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but well, I do know.
Reserve judgment on that one.
Yeah. So his company makes Kono Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, and then they have the Tohu from.
We say Sauv.
Yeah, everyone says Tohu.
Valley. This is more your vineyards, or
it's a bit of a mix, really. I guess the Kono Sauvignon is like the larger volume, more like your classic Marlborough Sauvignon. So it sort of picks up fruit from lots of different little sub-regions, if you like, from around Marlborough. So they all kind of provide different sort of flavour profiles and things like that. But the Tohu brand, which is our sort of, I guess, the more premium offering, if you like, is focused around this one sub-appellation, really, called the Awatere Valley. Yeah, so all of our fruit for the Tohu brand comes out of that valley, and then the Kono is a more classic Marlborough Sauvignon, if you like.
That's actually kind of interesting, because it seems like Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is kind of getting to the point where it's getting into the sub-region where it's just not Marlborough, because there is differences.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
And I think most people, especially in the value price, just like Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, but they should be able to figure out what is their favorite or what they want to go for, or at least maybe try different ones to see what it is all about, because it's not all one thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, all the little sub-regions, they all provide sort of different characteristics. I'd say the Awatere, and a lot of the Kono fruit is coming out of the Awatere. It's where our winery is based. So sort of probably 70% of the fruit that feeds into that is coming from the Awatere. So that's a more sort of more like gooseberry and more grapefruit and a bit more minerality, less of the really big sort of fruit salad, tropical fruit characters. So it's a little bit cooler nights, get a little bit more acidity out there and stuff like that. So, yeah.
What side of the island is it on?
So east coast of the South Island. So, in New Zealand we have like the very, amazingly inventively named North Island and South Island. So there's the one up the north, and there's one down the south.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty easy, yeah. So we're sort of top, I guess, northeast of the South Island. So it's sort of, we're sheltered by the Southern Alps from all the way.
The North Island's wines are much, much different.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
It's almost, not shockingly so, but if you're used to one, the other one is completely different.
Yeah, that's right.
It's still good. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it's kind of horses for courses, really. And the North Island, it's a lot warmer, so they can do the varietals that we can't do down south, like the bigger reds and things like that.
This might be a little bit slightly off the topic we're doing at the moment, but when Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand first hit, maybe like 20 years ago,
sure,
but the Pinot Noir was also as big a buzz as the Sauvignon Blanc did, and it's kind of faded because it was maybe like a quality for price quotient was off the tubes for that one too.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Is it just a matter that Sauvignon Blanc took off, where they planted more Sauvignon Blanc and less Pinot Noir?
If anything, in Marlborough now, you're seeing Pinot Noir vines that were planted 20, 25 years ago getting pulled out and replanted with Sauvignon. I mean, Sauvignon's just been...
So it's the economic part of it.
Such a juggernaut, it's been so successful. And for the growers as well, like on a commercial basis, the growers can, if you're growing grapes and you're selling grapes to a winery like myself, then...
you got to make a living, and plus people are happy with it, so it's not... But you did have good Pinot Noir.
And Sauvignon is easy to grow as well, So, Pinot Noir is always a challenge, and we're in a pretty cool part of the world and a cool part of New Zealand. So it's a challenge every year to get your Pinot sort of cropping at a good level and get it ripe and clean and into the winery, whereas Sauvignon Blanc is just, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it crops high. It, you can pick it a little bit unripe if you have to, of all the varieties out there, because it does have it's all about acid and sort of freshness. So you can actually bring it in a little bit unripe, if you like, and still make a really good wine out of it, whereas Pinot Noir is not so forgiving, obviously.
No, and plus with Sauvignon Blanc, you don't want to do that much manipulation to it, because the grapes themselves really make a great wine, no matter where it's. Remember, I first got into it from the Loire Valley.
Yeah.
And everybody there's, Sancerre is great. No, the $12 one's just as good. At least to me it was.
Yeah. A little bit of that's the sort of it's the bonus and the curse of Marlborough Sauvignon. It's like, it's pretty hard to get a bad one out there. Like, we're all making pretty good wines at a certain sort of level. You can't really find terrible Marlborough Sauvignons.
Well, the taste of Marlborough wines are really, really good, where they just pick from different areas. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with those wines. They're delicious.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing that gets me when I'm always doing a review of a wine from Sauvignon, they always say, well, we brew the grapes here and stainless steel tanks, and then we bottled it, and they never ever talk about how they made it. Is it that simple?
Is it just one way to make it?
Yeah, because they never say a word about it.
Yeah, I mean, people do finesse it, I suppose, but it's a pretty simple process, to be honest.
Yeah, I noticed. I looked at the tasting notes for the Kauno, and they said that they get the warm, the warm must, and then they inoculate it and stuff. And it's like the first time I ever saw anybody actually tell me a little bit about what they're doing. And I know I don't need to know that as a wine drinker, but I do like to have something that I can go, oh, that's why I like this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I guess that's all.
But it is a fairly simple.
It is. I mean, it's machine harvested. It likes being machine harvested, so there's no hand picking going on. So it likes that skin contact, when you run a machine over your vineyard and you break up your grapes and it's your skin's in contact with the juice, so it gets a little bit of skin contact. Our stuff would have a couple of hours. It's pressed, like we don't do, well, me personally, I don't do any press cuts, if you know what I mean. So we just press it until it's dry. All those harder sort of pressings at the end, which something like Chardonnay, Riesling, you'd separate out, but with Sauvignon Blanc,
you're not worried about first run and second run as much.
Not at all. In fact, there's a lot of there's a lot of good stuff in those harder pressings that we really need.
I always wondered how the grape juice knew not to only give the first run the good stuff and the second run not. It's like the grapes aren't that smart, are they?
Yeah. Well, we taste it. When I make we do a Méthode Traditionnelle as well. So those are really a very rigorous press cut. As soon as it starts looking phenolic, you sort of
plus
separate that out.
The people who are doing the champagne style wines, they kind of like the fancy parts too.
Yeah.
If you don't do the fancy part, they're not going to
fuss about. Otherwise, you can't justify the cost, probably. Yeah.
No, so it has to have these details, even though you could probably make a great wine without that.
Yeah.
But so Sauvignon Blanc actually is that if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much do it.
Yeah, it's about there's some really important parts to it, which is temperature control would be one.
Yes.
Like having excellent temperature control in it's all stainless steel fermented. So as long as you've got, you can control your ferment temperatures. I'm not sure in Fahrenheit, but we'd be fermenting our juice at sort of 10 degrees Celsius in our big tanks, which is pretty cold. I don't know what that is. Does anyone know what that is?
10 degrees Celsius is what the temperature of the sun is, right? We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. We're in the southern hemisphere, so it's different down there.
It's backwards. The toilets go around the other way.
Yeah. So it's all about sort of cool fermentation and just locking in the locking in all that fresh fruit flavors and just it's very simple. I mean, I don't fine my wines at all. I don't use any of the sort of fining products and things like that. So
once you get
the fruit,
once you pick the right grapes and get this characteristic, that characteristic, then it's just a matter of getting it done and blending it to the proper point.
The big bit you can really manipulate is with yeasts. So you can use a whole lot of different yeasts, which will release different thiols, which is your sort of grapefruit and passion fruit sort of flavors, or you can use more neutral yeast, which will just sort of show you the fruit flavors. But really, the most important thing is that day that you decide to pick the fruit, really, because you're sort of locked in your basic sort of flavor and your sugar levels and your sort of concentration. It's that day that you can't change. You can manipulate it a little bit with yeast and things like lees contact and stuff like that, a little bit of lees aging or lees stirring, that sort of thing. But otherwise, it's, you're aiming to really bottle it fresh. Everything's bottled. It's all out of the winery. By like my winery now, we're coming into harvest in about a month's time, and my winery is dead empty now. So it's all comes in, gets finished, fermented, finished, sorted out, and bottled and out the door. I mean, it's a winemaker, it's a chief financial officer's dream, really. Because within a year, you're done and you're on to the next one. Yeah.
Also, and everything's being sold somewhere, and you're making money, and that's it.
And it all gets sold. Yeah, I mean,
which is
hopefully that continues, but it seems to have so far for the last 20 years.
Which is one of the funny things is that Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc it's a French grape.
Yeah.
And they pretty much, it isn't anymore.
Yeah.
It's a
found
New Zealand
its place,
grape.
didn't it? Yeah, it really did.
And when other places make their wines, because California is starting to get into it a little bit more, they're kind of following New Zealand's lead rather than going to the other way, to France.
we always get sent pictures of labels, from France or South Africa or something that have got like a kiwi on the front or something like that. And they're talking about them being like Marlborough wines and stuff. It's kind of flattering, but it kind of
a cartoon kiwi.
Terrible as well.
What was that brand that had with the Australian brand that was horrible? I shouldn't say that.
Oh, one of the many critter brands.
Yeah, the critters.
You might be.
Yellowtail. Yeah. Actually, it won this big award with their reserve wines in Chicago. All the Psalms drank it, and it beat like some of the big expensive ones. But that's another story altogether.
Yeah, got sucked in by all the sugar probably.
So, the winery is the first Maori winery, or?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So our owners were the first Maori-owned winery. So if your listeners are not sure who that is, that's like the indigenous people of New Zealand that were. They basically moved to New Zealand from sort of Tahiti and Hawaii around 800 years ago, sort of populated the country, and then the Europeans really didn't turn up until, we're the last country the last landmass in the world to be sort of populated by people, if you like, and the Europeans were only there for like the last sort of 300 years, something like that. So they sort of, our owners have got a few different sort of business interests, but they'd always been growers and traders and stuff even before European times.
So did they actually own their land they had all along? So they just...
some of it, yeah, because like most indigenous people, there was the Crown, the British Crown sort of
took what they wanted.
Took what they wanted. Yeah. In theory, set aside a little bit for sort of reserve land, but that's actually sort of going through the courts at the moment. There's supposed to be 10% of what was sort of agreed with the Crown was set aside, but it was never done, of course. Yeah. So they're sort of trying to get there now.
Now the land is worth so much money, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah,
it's not even about cultural imperialism anymore. It's about dollars or whatever. Yeah.
So we've got vineyards on some of our what they call the tenths land, that land that was actually set aside and that sort of stayed under our ownership or management for all that time. So that's something that's really proud for our owners. I've got 4,000 owners that own our company because they're all derived from these original families back in the sort of 1840s that sort of did the deal with the Crown, if you like. And so you can be a shareholder in the company but only by blood, if you like. So as the generations go by, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I've got 4,000 owners looking over my shoulder most of the time, I suppose.
Well, they don't know how to make wine.
No, thankfully. Yeah.
Just tell them.
They just leave that bit to me mostly. Yeah.
Before Marble New Zealand Wines, I know OMC, Ontario Millionaires Club. That was New Zealand, and Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords. He was Maori too.
Yeah, he's nailed the New Zealand sense of humour, that's for sure. We were kind of surprised to see that was so successful over in, especially in the US, where sometimes irony and the whole that sort of particular Kiwi sense of humour, which is... it's pretty quirky.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, Australian accent is just like the New Zealand accent, only evil.
I don't think I sound like an Australian at all, but some people think otherwise.
Oh, the jokes. Yeah, you sound like that when I squint my ears. I love that show. That's another story. So here we go. So the
tohu, always a hard one to pronounce for a lot of New Zealanders as well would say it tohu, but the tohu would be the sort of correct pronunciation, if you like. Yeah.
Means
it sort of means a signature or sign. So if you were to put your mark on something, would be to put your tohu on it.
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of what it means. And that little that sort of motif on the front label is what they call a koru. So it sort of symbolises an idea of a palm frond sort of unfurling, so it's all about sort of new life and growth and the sort of natural world and all that sort of stuff. It actually
looks to me like an Egyptian, one of those things on the pyramids or something, like an eye or whatever.
I'm not sure you're right on that one, but
no, I'm 100% wrong.
Yeah. And then kono is a Maori word which means like a food basket. So it's sort of in a way, it's true. Kono is our overarching food and beverage company, of which tohu is the sort of the main wine brand, if you like. So kono is would be a woven basket that Maori people are like very hospitable, and food is always a big part of entertaining guests, or if anyone comes to see you, you have to have food and all that sort of stuff. So you would present your best produce in a kono, which would be a woven basket. So it might have
it's very welcoming.
Yeah, some of your apples, and so for us it'd have our apples, and it would have our, we've got a beer company, hop federation, and we do a bit of wine and stuff like that. So I guess the idea would be that some companies would take your whole range of produce, if you like. Yeah.
One is in a clear bottle, the other one has a tinted bottle. Is there a reason for that, other just to differentiate?
Yeah, not really. I guess the I think we were one of the original sort of Marlborough producers to come out in this sort of clear bottle. It's actually like got a bit of a blue tint to it. It's called Arctic Blue, so it's sort of
actually
when it's empty.
I was thinking that
when we get to the bottom of it, you'll see it's blue.
It does have a naturally green tint.
Yeah. What we found is we've looked at putting it in a clear bottle, and it actually makes the wine look sort of terrible and a little bit yellowy, which is not what you're after.
On the shelf is the last thing you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Plaid is always good.
Yeah, we find a lot of Marlborough Sauvignons are in that colour glass now, so yeah.
No, it makes sense because it is reminiscent of what it will look like in the glass. Only it's going to be a lot more pale that way.
There's no hiding from it, is it? It's a fresh wine and it's clean and sort of green, and that's what it's all about.
And that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I guess the Tohu is in just a bit more of a Grand Burgundy and a bit more of a traditional sort of premium sort of bottle, and all those premium cues that the marketers go on about that I don't understand.
No, me either.
No.
I mean, it's, I don't think most people do.
No.
I think the label's what gets everybody.
I think it's the quality of the wine that gets everyone.
Not the first time, after you have it. It's just, the quality wine is always there. If you don't drink it twice, it doesn't have that.
Yeah.
But the first time is like, oh, that looks interesting. So excellent.
Yeah, cool.
What other wines do you do? Do you make a Pinot Noir? Do you make
we make a lot of wines. We almost export exclusively Sauvignon Blanc around the world, and like most Marlborough producers.
I imagine that's what everybody's asking for.
It's about 90% of what I make is Sauvignon Blanc. But
do you ever get tired of making Sauvignon Blanc?
I don't drink or taste a lot of Sauvignon Blanc as personally on the weekends, I suppose, because it's a little bit sort of more like work, I suppose, like as a winemaker, of course, you like sort of Chardonnays and Cabernets and Pinot Noirs, I guess, but yeah.
I had a winemaker tell me that it takes a lot of beer to make good wine.
Yeah, that is totally true. That's one of my lines. Was that me that told you that?
Yeah.
I drink a bit of beer.
Yeah, because you can't drink the wine all the time, because after a while you lose your...
Well, at the end of a hard day in vintage too, it's sort of the last thing you feel like. You feel like a couple of beers and a piece of pizza, really. Yeah. But we make a bunch of different wines. I do two methodes. So I do a Blanc de Blanc, a vintage Blanc de Blanc, and I do a rosé. We do a couple of Rieslings, like a Botrytis Riesling, a dry Riesling, a few Pinot Gris, a few Chardonnays.
Enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
That is the way the wine world is. You make the wine that everybody wants, and then you make some wines that are interest to you that might go somewhere sometime.
Yeah, and it's it allows, you could say it sort of pays for all the small quirky little barrel fermented Chardonnays and the weirder little bits and pieces.
And the quirky wines are just as essential as the main wines.
Yeah. And those are the ones that that sort of do well in wine shows and at the media, and Soms sort of like, because they're the sort of the quirkier ones, but that's sort of like the Sauvignon Blanc is the big behemoth in the background that's sort of driving it all forward, really, which is pretty cool. It's amazingly lucky to have that in our country and in our company, really.
A lot of Soms are not going to push Sauvignon Blanc that much because it's popular.
Yeah, you don't need to push it, really.
Well, you don't, but it's like, it's uncool for them. They have to come up with some wine from Italy that they make 300 cases of,
Yeah. We do like 50 bottles of Pet Nat every year for those sort of guys. something weird and wonderful, We do like a little bit of skin contact, some strange, Pinot Gris, more orange wines and quirky little things that we play around with.
Trader Joe's actually had a Pet Nat this fall.
Did they? That's gone mainstream.
I was shocked
that's awesome.
at that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so there's room for your crazy wines.
Yeah, I don't know if they do like a couple of 100,000 cases of it or not. Maybe not.
How much when they did their orders, did they sell that much wine or?
Oh, what do you
Trader
mean?
Joe's, like when you sell them wine, how much wine does get sold to a Trader Joe's?
No.
I know it's before your time, but
yeah, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. The Connell wine, and it is elsewhere. It's not just in Trader Joe's. I think some states it's exclusive in Trader Joe's, but in other places, I believe here in
when I looked online, it was in a whole bunch of different wine shops, which usually tells you if it's a Trader Joe's exclusive wine, no wine shop's got it.
Yeah.
And your wine was available a lot of places.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So for us, we're a sort of a medium-sized producer in New Zealand. Like the really big guys in New Zealand are the big multinationals that like Pernod Ricard and Constellation, these sort of guys, and they're operating at a I sort of think in tons because I'm a winemaker. So these guys are sort of crushing 40, 50,000 tonne, and I'm crushing about sort of 3,000, 2.5 to 3,000 tonnes. So we're sort of like we're not tiny, but we're definitely not in that giant league. And we probably don't have that ambition to be either. We're sort of growing sustainably over the years.
You're doing very well.
We started out with like 500 cases, and we're doing, 200,000 odd now. So it's just growing, it grows at a few percent. We haven't really chased sort of massive, and a bit of that's the Maori business that I work for. They have, believe it or not, and I don't know if people believe me when I tell them this, but they have a underlying sort of document called Te Pai Tawhiri, which is a 500-year plan for their business and for their people and for the owners and stuff like that. So there's like this.
So they're going to be making wine on Mars?
I don't know if I'm part of the 500-year plan, maybe just the 5 to 10-year one for me, but yeah, so there's like a really long vision, and a part of that is sort of partnering up with people like Trader Joe's and our importers, TBS in America, and it's a part of those, relationships is what they sort of run their business on, which is pretty cool to be a part of, really.
Right.
Yeah, different almost, quite different.
Trader Joe's, I always thought was smart because they buy up front. They pay up front too, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that part. I'm sort of like,
because I know when you sell to a distributor pays you as it goes. Is that how that works?
We sell it to Trader Joe's through a distributor, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that, because...
I don't think it goes directly to
Okay, so it's not like one of their Grand Reserve wines, which their name's on it. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like an imported through Trader Joe's.
Okay, so that's just
part of the
yeah.
three-tier system still.
I think what we love about TJ's is that sort of loyalty, like we've been with them for a long time, and there's obviously a lot of other Marlborough Sauvignon Blancs knocking around, but, we do well with them, and, I guess we look after them and they look after us, and that's sort of like a pretty amazing business model, really.
And it's always nice to go to a grocery store and actually pick up a really good bottle of wine. And then you don't have to go to a separate shop for that.
Yeah, cool.
And it's easy because they have a smaller selection. So I got 4 Sauvignon Blancs to pick from, and I had that one and I like it. There you go.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's been awesome for us. Yeah.
Awesome. What's any next plans for you? What's the winery? What's anything new happening?
Well, we're going to be picking some grapes by the time I get home.
So you're just on vacation right now.
Kind of a working vacation, really. But
you get to travel through the cold heartland.
I've left the height of my summer. It's like 1,000,000 degrees at home. My kids are swimming in the pool and the river every day, and I'm up here in Chicago where it's not quite 1,000,000 degrees.
And no one swims in the river.
Oh, really? Oh.
You missed it. Another month, they dye it green.
Oh, do they?
For St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Nick's got a good video of that. Some kid on Dare jumped in there, and I think he had like over 1 million views of that thing.
Yeah, 2 million.
Yeah, on someone jumping in the river for St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day is usually about when we start picking grapes at home. We might do a little bit of methode a little bit earlier than that, and I saw just yesterday my first data come through. So someone in the winery has gone out and sampled some grapes very optimistically. They're pretty early. And that's looking like it's probably about 3 weeks away for our Chardonnay that we'll pick for the champagne style. And then really the Sauvignon Blanc will all be sort of starting to pour in the door.
How long is triage for the methods?
It sort of varies, really. Our Blanc de Blanc's sitting on lees for about sort of 3 to 4 years at the moment.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, actually.
So you're outdoing champagne.
Yeah. We're part of it. It's kind of a cool thing in Marlborough. There's a group called Methode Marlborough that have sort of set some guidelines, I suppose, rather than, I guess they're rules really to belong to this group. And there's like all the sort of good methode producers in Marlborough. So we've all signed up to sort of, only using traditional varieties, bottling in Marlborough, aging on lees, and, all these sort of kind of stricter rules than they use in champagne, to be honest. But so it sort of sets the ground rules, and it means that you don't get sort of pushed by sales marketing, if you like, into releasing things too early. So everything's getting a good amount of time on lees, and they're released sort of when they should be. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's excellent because that's way beyond the norm. Because
usually there's a bit of a rush.
Sometimes it's 9 months. It's a year and a half in champagne.
Yeah.
So yours must be really creamy and.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it gets a lot of those sort of yeasty autolysis kind of characters that I really like in our champagne. It's a cool part when you're the winemaker. You can make wines that you want to drink yourself.
Oh, yeah. For people who don't know, the longer it's in bottle for second fermentation, the more the bubbles get incorporated in the wine, and the more the yeast kind of gives its thing going, and it gets creamy and it gets delicious. Not that it was not delicious in the first place.
Less about the sort of fruit flavors, more sort of development and sort of interest going on. Yeah.
That's excellent. So you get to drink any of that while it's going, or just to see how it is?
Well, I mean, we try them all the time when they're sitting on lees, but, the base wine, you know what I mean by like the base wine. So, you pick your grapes, but you're picking them really, for champagne, you're picking them really unripe. They're like terrible to taste. So there's loads of acid.
They're so sour.
No sugar. And the resulting wine is quite low alcohol. So it'd be like maybe 10% alcohol, still got a truckload of acid. It's like the worst thing you can ever try. And then, you put it into the champagne bottle and you do the secondary ferment, you leave it for a few years, and then this amazing thing sort of comes out of this, to be honest, a pretty ugly beginning. They're clean wines, but they are just ferocious to drink. They just strip your teeth.
I've seen a show where two people were taking turns daring themselves to drink it after it was picked.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like,
Oh, man, it's tough,
Sour Patch Kids.
It
was terrible.
Yeah, it's brutal on your poor old teeth. Yeah.
Well, this podcast is, we started out with affordable New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, and we ended up with very high-end New Zealand bubbly. I guess there's more to New Zealand than we think, isn't there?
Yeah, it seems that way. Yep.
That's excellent. Cool. Got anything else we should know?
No, I'm happy. This is my first time in Chicago, actually, so I'm sort of been out for my little walk this morning and looking forward to hanging around for the next few days, and yeah.
Well, Pequod's just got rated the number one pizzeria in the United States, and that's over on Clybourne and Wrightwood. If you're looking for pizza,
okay.
it might be loaded today because it won the award yesterday.
Right, should have gone the day before yesterday.
Yeah. And so there you go. Well, that's it for me, Domain Dave from CheapWineFinder.com. Keep it cheap, and we'll be talking to you. Thank you for listening. Adios. Bye.